Hey guys, today's story is about a single player basically ruining D&D for a whole group of friends. So, I used to run a sci-fi themed campaign with an old group of friends. It was super casual and was a mostly joke and reference filled, laid back experience, while one of my other players wrote a more serious campaign. The party consisted of Chad, who was a frat boy style monk, who ended up being the leader of the group through charisma and memes. We also had Rebecca, who was a wisecracking gunslinger who ended up being the heart of the group. And then we have the problem player, who I'm just going to call Red because there was so many red flags. And they had a reputation for playing edgier characters and min-maxing, which we all tolerated because they were our friend. And this particular campaign showed him at his worst. He was playing a warlock, which he told me was obsessed with obtaining knowledge. I assumed that this meant that he would really be investing into history and arcana, letting me make up some fun lore. But what I did not expect, and what he neglected to mention, was that he meant all knowledge. Specifically, things that the other party members didn't want to tell his character for one reason or another. At first, this was a little bit of fun, but as time went on, it started making everyone else feel more and more uncomfortable, as they couldn't get any actual roleplay done without him self-inserting. We ended up all talking to him about it, and he agreed to stop with the constant spying. But almost as if he was doing it in retaliation, he started a new habit, attempting to straight up steal from other party members. Now, I don't allow stealing from other party members, as it never really ends well. So, when I shut it down quickly, he quickly started searching for loopholes to this rule. Specifically, breaking into other party members' rooms at night just to prove some kind of point, and changing his gender to try to seduce an item away from someone. And for context, Red was playing a Gallifreyan, a race that can change their form when dying. I had homebrewed a race that did this when they succeeded death saves, since they happened rarely in the campaign. So he asked if his character could become a woman at one point, following his regeneration. And I said yes, assuming that he wanted to try and do some genuinely interesting psychological roleplay with how this would affect his character, who had some toxic masculinity beforehand. And instead of even attempting any of that, he immediately tried to use his new feminine body to attempt to seduce Chad so he would give him his items. This failed, as Chad didn't like Red in character, which led to Red basically begging that I allow him to roll persuasion, which I didn't allow since I feel that persuasion on other players is more interesting as a roleplay experience, as opposed to a mechanical one. And speaking of failed seduction attempts, there was a long-standing issue with Red attempting to seduce a specific NPC named Alana. Now, Alana was an ex-military sniper who stuck to themselves. They were mostly a filler character that was just meant to be a bodyguard for someone who was a plot hook. But the party fell in love with this random NPC. And of course, I wouldn't have D&D any other way. Less than 3. Red had made several failed advances towards Alana due to failed dice rolls, and this seemed to really get under her skin for some reason, despite several other NPCs expressing interest in Red. Eventually, Alana started dating Rebecca, which was the only real romantic relationship of the campaign, and Red tried at every opportunity to get Elena to leave Rebecca for him, or try to get both to agree to a threesome. Eventually, I just had the Elena NPC start avoiding Red, which helped for a while. And up until this point, we as a group had mostly managed to get Red to be in a tolerable state. He hadn't really stopped doing anything that he was doing, but mostly stepped back for a while and let the others share the spotlight rather than forcing himself into it. But then Rebecca's player approached me, as they had gotten tired of their character, which at this point they had almost gone from 1 to 20. So they wanted to switch it up a bit, and I understood completely. They told me that they were interested in killing off their character, who, like I said, was really the heart of the group. Now, I'm always eager for interesting roleplay opportunities, so we had the BBG kill off Rebecca as a show of power. And, to my delight, the party was actually really into this. The campaign was going to take a serious turn for the last few sessions, which made the BBG feel really special, despite being basically a pretty bland character. In any case, the party decided to hold a funeral for Rebecca, and this is when Red struck again. Red decided to make a move on Elena at her girlfriend's funeral. The entire table fell silent before Chad let out a single, sighed, "Dude, what the fuck?" We were 2 sessions away from the final battle, and the wind just had been taken fully out of everyone's sails. While this wasn't the worst sounding thing that Red had done, the sheer level of disrespect felt like the biggest slap in the face to the entire party, but especially to Rebecca's player, as they had been the main person trying to defend Red up until this point. Come on guys, does this really surprise you any? You have known he's a problem for a while, and yet you just were sitting there grinning and bearing it and gritting your teeth. And for a lot of people, this was the last straw. And the only reason that the campaign didn't end was because they were so close to the finale. And I decided that in order to try to get some fun back into the campaign, so that the finale wasn't just going through the motions, we decided that we would do a running joke, a beach episode. All of the characters were set to go, except for Red, who was brooding as always. And when the others were all getting prepared to spend what might be their last bit of downtime with their friends, Red pulled out a cursed magical artifact that I had completely forgotten about. The Lament configuration. Now, I had added this box in for a joke about halfway through the campaign, and I never expected the party to actually open it, since all the item did was summon a difficult battle. Red decided to ruin the relaxing session that everyone wanted to do in favor of making the session about him once again. And you as the DM could have told him, no, goodbye. Whatever is following after this point, I'm going to say is the DM's fault, honestly. They've had more than enough chances to get rid of this guy, or stop any of his misadventures. Not to mention, he could just very easily say that when Red is opening it, the box is actually empty. It was a red herring the entire time. There is no difficult fight. This resulted in a large fight between the party and a bunch of demons, with both sides ending up extremely injured. And in a last-ditch attempt to win, the demons offered the party a deal. They could continue the fight and maybe win, or back off and just let them have the one who opened the box. The party, who were fully sick of his shit, didn't even say anything. They just looked at each other and nodded. And with that, Red's character was gone from the campaign, and we did the final session. It was fun, but the party split up after that. None of us really wanted to play with Red anymore, and we just didn't have enough people to do a campaign without him. This was somehow our 3rd campaign with Red, and this is the best of the 3. It only goes downhill from there. So, you knew that this guy had been a problem for a very long time throughout this entire campaign, but not only that, you knew he was an issue with 2 whole other campaigns predating this one. Why did you just not look for another person? It's really not that hard to find a person anymore. D&D is not as niche as it used to be. You could have easily found a 4th or even a 5th person in case one of those 2 new people flaked out. Not to mention, you could still play with 3 people and still have fun. And if you were afraid of hurting Red's feelings or upsetting him or something, then he obviously had no issue with making anyone else at the table upset by doing what he did he? And not only that, but if someone can't get over the fact that they got removed from a D&D group because of how they acted, then that's just kind of furthering the point that you don't want to be with this person, either as a player, a friend, or what have you. People need to stop frickin' letting one single friend who's being a issue get away with it. Stop smiling and pretending like things are fine. It's not! Put your foot down. Tell them to stop. If they don't stop, then get rid of them. Find a replacement. If you can't find a replacement, then I hate the saying, but no D&D might be better than bad D&D. Why do something if it's just making you stressed and not enjoy it? D&D is meant to be fun, not a chore. But if you seriously have friends who cannot take criticism or are willing to actually comply with just very simple requests, or are going to throw a shit fit for being excluded for something that they were being a drag on, then you might need new friends. Anyway, that's the end of this one. So, as always, stay safe, stay sane, and have a good one.